Boris Slutsky will join us next season as soloist for Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 4. Mr. Slutsky emerged on the international music scene when he captured the first prize, along with every major prize, including the Audience Prize and the Wilhelm Bacchus Award, at the 1981 William Capell International Piano Competition. And those prizes go along with first prizes at the Kosciuszko Chopin Competition and the San Antonio International Keyboard Competition, and major prizes at the International Bach Competition in memory of Glenn Gould, the Busoni, the Reno Salagallo, and Ettore Pozzoli International Piano Competitions. Mr. Slutsky has appeared on nearly every continent as soloist and recitalist, having performed with the London Philharmonic, in Germany with the Stuttgart State Orchestra and the Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie Neuss am Rhein, in Switzerland with the Bern Symphony Orchestra, with the Bergen Philharmonic in Norway, the Rai Orchestra in Milan, the KBS Symphony Orchestra in Korea, and so on, including major orchestras in Spain, Russia, Colombia, Brazil, and South Africa. Not to forget North America, he's also performed with the Baltimore, Florida, Utah, and Toronto symphonies.
I have the pleasure of talking to Boris Slutsky, which I'm looking forward to very much. I think between you and me, you got the best of the Beethoven concertos. I mean, it's, we shouldn't pick favorite children, but at least for my money, this might be the best of them. And for a lot of people's feelings, I think people think it's an extraordinary work.
It is undoubtedly the most extraordinary work. I don't know if it's the best. I've always had a soft spot for the piece. Of all the concertos, this is the most personal one. Just like Opus 110 that came later, of course. I think in Opus 110 and Opus 106, there are some deeply personal moments where he's talking to us directly, I think, talking about himself. In the fourth concerto, this is very sublime.
Chopin is a huge part of your career, and we have the pleasure of the Barcarolle to talk about, which I think is, one of his iconic pieces. I'd love to know your feelings about Chopin. You play Chopin beautifully, and I think it seems to be an iconic part of your career, I think is safe to say. And I'd love to have some of your feelings about this most pianistic of all composers.
I've always felt very close to the music of Chopin. I have to mention one of my other teachers here because I think he, along with Cantor, had a profound impact on me as a pianist, as a musician. His name is Alexander Edelman. And one of the first pieces that I studied with him was Polonaise Fantasy. And of course, the Barcarolle and other pieces. And the way he was able to talk about sound and to talk about touch and to talk about creating different atmospheres was, again, I feel that I'm very lucky that I had a chance to be close to him and to have him around for many years, actually, and to come back, and after I finished my formal studies with him, to always be able to come back and play for him into his 90s.
And the Barcarolle specifically, well, and Chopin, I sort of wonder if Chopin came to you, or you were able to meet him, what you think his hands would be like, what his technique was like, what he was like as a pianist. Of course, he's playing essentially on a modern piano. I mean, by Chopin's time, by 1840s, essentially, it's not the monster you have behind you, but it's close enough. It has a plate.
It's very different. Of course, there are books written, many books written
Right.
about Chopin and his output and his, life and his playing. That would be incredible if one could meet him and ask him how do you really want your music to be?
Right.
Because it's one of the most personal, of course, composers. You have so many different interpreters and interpretations of his music, and it's hard to say what you prefer, because take Horowitz and Rubinstein, couldn't find any
Right.
more polar opposites, but it's hard to pick and choose. His hands, unique, I think. He revolutionized in many ways the instrument and the playing of the instrument, technique, everything. Uh, as I said, I'm not as eloquent as some of the writings about the subject, but I can't imagine piano music without Chopin. What is really incredible about this instrument, piano, is that it can sound so differently when different people play the same instrument. No one can explain how it happens, but it is true that, as one of my colleagues says, that even when the piano is out of tune, some people know how to play in tune, which is true. It always amazed me during
Yeah.
the auditions at Peabody, when at the end of the day, it's hard to hear when the piano is, after being beat up for about 10 hours, someone comes out and you hear that the piano is in tune, back in tune. And it's amazing that it has a voice, and so many voices actually, and that it can change like that. To me, that I find it it's a source of wonder every day.
Yeah. So you mentioned that next year, hopefully, please God, you'll be performing Beethoven's Fourth Piano Concerto for the first time. You must have like really defined thoughts about this, or do you leave this or will you start thinking about this in September? Is this something when do you start thinking about this?
I've been thinking about it for 25 years.
Ah,
I've taught the piece, as I said, many times, and
yeah.
of course, with each student, you hear different things, because I don't believe that a piece should be performed one way and one way only. That there's only one right way to perform it. So when I teach it, I try to hear what the students have to offer, and try to find ways to help them express what they feel about the piece. So I've been thinking about it for a long
Long
time.
time.
I have to tell you of an experience that I've had before my family left Russia. This was in February of 1977. Emil Gilels, who was my idol when I was growing up.
Sure.
And I've been fortunate to have heard him so many times live. And it was, of course, a unique experience. When you hear his sound live, it's unlike anything one can imagine. It's you almost envision golden balloons flying out of the instrument. So anyway, he played 5 Beethoven concerti in 2 evenings. 1, 2, 3 in the first evening, and 4 and 5 the second evening. And I remember that after the 4th concerto, before the intermission, the audience did not let him leave. Everyone was on their feet for 20 minutes.
Wow.
And he ended up coming back and playing the second movement again as an encore. This was the most unforgettable. If I had to choose a concert that I will never forget, this has to rank among
Wow.
very, very top. And I think that was the first time when I thought, oh my God, this piece is something else.
That's fascinating. They released not too long ago a Seattle concert that he did in the 60s on Deutsche Grammophon, which is also not in particularly great sound, but unbelievable playing. Very poetic and very visionary. And I too have always, I remember the first time I heard his playing, I was going to undergraduate school in Ottawa, and my girlfriend, who was a pianist, introduced me. I'd never even heard of Gilels. And it was all of a sudden I heard Schubert the way I had never heard Schubert before. It was a revelation. And yeah, it was very, very interesting. Well, we are looking forward to your performance with the Baltimore Chamber Orchestra next year of Beethoven's 4th Piano Concerto. I will definitely be there. And I am looking forward to your first shot at this fantastic piece. What a nice thing to save, for this time in life.
One of my teachers, Nadia Reisenberg, I remember that I told her that I was going to learn Brahms B flat concerto. And she looked at me and she said, "I'm so envious that you're going to discover it for the first time."
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
I feel that it's I'm very fortunate to be
Right.
able to actually perform it for the first time.
Boris Slutsky, thank you very much. It's always nice to speak with you.
Great talking to you. Thank you.
for the next edition of BCO Sundays at 3 on May 9th, as Rebecca Smithhorn brings her talents, thank you, LeBron, to Beethoven's most grand and glorious Piano Concerto No. 5, known as The Emperor.